Hello, in this video we're going to talk about loading and saving weights. Now, why would we do that? Okay, so as I pointed out last week, some of the joints in some of your files needed to be repositioned. So this is generally where I'll put so they need to be anatomically correct, for one thing. They need to have a slight bend in them. For knees and elbows, I always favor sort of the outside of the joint when it rotates. You want to have the S shape in your skeleton. I usually push it in just a little bit so it's just not hanging on the very end of the back. You want your neck here and your head to be placed correctly at the base of the skull. This end joint here isn't absolutely necessary. You can leave it on. Same thing with the hand. Make sure it's at the wrist. Make sure this is at the ankle. Okay, so if your skeleton was not properly placed, then at this point what you'd want to do is reposition the joints. And then you would have to go back through the skeletal tools where you orient your joints. First you'd freeze the transforms, then you'd orient the joints, and then you'd also go in with the local rotation axes. Also, if you're in component mode, right click and you'd have to have the rotation axes on like I just did there. Okay. Hit F8 to go between object and component mode. All right, so you would have to do all those things. Now, if you want to get your weights back, and this can be for whatever reason, you can save your weights out and load them back in. If we go to Skin and Maya, now there is this export and import weight maps tool, okay? But the way this works is it's based on the vertex UVs. And so we can go and look at that really quick. So Windows, Modeling Editors, UV Editor. Okay, so here are the weights and how they're set up. So this would all work, except this model has stacked UVs, and what that means is that both the right and left leg are using this texture space for the front leg and the back leg. Same thing with the arms. The top of the arm, inside of the arm. Here there's a tattoo on one side, so that was separated. They're also using the side of the head twice and the boots. So in order for this to work correctly, all these elements would have to be spread out and put on their unique space in UV space. Okay, so when we're doing the demo in class, it didn't work, and that is likely a reason for why it didn't work. So now there's an option to transfer weights. I'll show that in class today. But here I just want to focus on a third-party tool, and there's a bunch of them. And I'm going to show you the first one that I ever really used, and I keep using a lot of these tools because they're just solid. Okay, so if you go to cometcartoons.com, these were written for Maya 7. Okay. This guy has written some brilliant scripts. They're in Mel, and they've stood the test of time. So if we go to Maya Downloads, Mel Script Suite, he's got all of his Mel scripts into one file. So you can download them here. And so I've downloaded those to my Maya scripts directory. So Comet scripts, extract them, open them up here. It all comes with also comes with an icons file, so I extracted that. So the tool you're going to need is the Comet Save Weights tool. And so I copied and pasted that over to my Maya 2020 Press Scripts directory. So if we go to Maya 2020, there's a scripts directory, and that's what it defaults to, but there's also a prefs scripts directory. Maya will read either one. I prefer to use this one because I frequently use these like shelves and icons. So to me, it just makes more sense to put them in there. You can put them in either this scripts directory or that one. Okay, so under scripts, Comet Save Weights. So you can see that is here. And I also put in libskin and libstring, copied those over, and I'll show you why I did that in just a second. So libstring and libskin. Okay. So, so now if I go to my scripts directory, or pardon me, my script editor, that's going to be this one. I can also open it from here, Windows, General Editors, Script Editor. Or I could Control-Shift-Click and just put it on my shelf. And I already have it there, so I can right-click, delete it. I don't need that. Okay, so come back and open it. So what I'm going to do is File, Open Script, and let's get the Comet Save Weights script. Open File. Okay, so now I've got the Comet Save Weights in my input window. Control middle mouse drag will make it a little bigger to see. Okay, now generally scripts will give a description, the author, notes. In this case, it says it requires libskin and libstring.mel. Okay, so you need these scripts. These are like libraries. Okay, now the 2 slashes in mil are for commenting your code. So if I were to take those away, now you can just see it changes color. Okay, so important to note, these are comments, and this is just directions. So, and most scripts will have a usage line here. So in order to use the script, make sure you've got the 2 libraries, and to use it, so you do source cometSaveWeights.mel. Now cometSaveWeights.mel is the file, okay? And then it does the semicolon, and then executes cometSaveWeights procedure. Okay, it's like a function. You've got the semicolon at the end. This one has the quotes because it's looking for that file. Now the save weights procedure, it's right here. It's within the mel file. Okay, so in order to use these, so what the source command does is it will take this file and it's going to source it, which means it's going to load it if it's not already loaded. Make sure it's in memory and then execute the script. Okay. you don't always need the source. Generally, you can usually just get by with just the procedure. But I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing anyway. So let's just highlight this. You highlight everything except for the /. Then I can just take it and middle mouse drag it and just toss it on my shelf. Okay, so I'm not going to save the changes. And if I right click, edit, you can see that this is the command, and I just copied it right out. Then I could go under shelves. Down here I could give it a label, SW for save weights, save all shelves. Okay. Now, I put those, earlier I talked about sourcing, and that's just essentially it reloads the commands that you've got in case you didn't have them. Now, I'm not sure if sourcing also looks for the libraries that we had, so I'm just going to do like sort of a manual source. So if you type rehash, select it, numeric keypad enter, that will reload your scripts, or if you just restart Maya, then the scripts will be loaded. Okay, so back to what I'm doing. Now this isn't, again, it's not entirely necessary unless you've had to modify your skeleton and realign it and then rebind it. Okay, so everything's bound. I like the binding. Okay, so let's open up Save Weights. So I'm going to select a skin cluster. You can see skin cluster there's there. If I click on this button, it's going to load it in. Let's give it a file name. And we're going to give it a file name. I'm just going to put it on the desktop. I'm going to call it GB weights. Save. And so now I'm going to click on Save Weights. Okay. But it's saying you need to have vertices selected to save. Okay, so let's come back under just the geometry. Right click, select the vertices. You can select the whole thing, and if you miss some, shift greater than or shift period. Get all my weights, all my vertices selected. And now I can save the weights. Okay, so it's saving it to that GB weights file that I previously that I just designated. Okay, so at this point, you could detach the weights, and so you just select the geometry, and if we just go to delete history, edit, delete by type history, it's going to delete all the history. Here I just click on the, made a button for that, delete history. Now the skin cluster's gone and the history is gone. Okay, so here is where you could get in, and if you had to reorient your joints, like make sure that things are anatomically correct where they should go. Put the shoulder just a little further than midway up. Shoulders, the arms rather, and legs, they need to have a bend in them. That's for IK down the road. I generally favor the end joint, pardon me, like the closer to the elbow, a little bit closer than in the middle, and I kind of favor the knee as opposed to the back of the knee. Okay, so at this point you would adjust your joints if needed, Now make sure the neck's in the right place, the head. And then you'd have to go through the process of reorienting the joints skeleton. You'd have to go through and reorient the joints as seen previously, and freeze transformations, reorient, and then you'd also have to go through the process of the local rotation axes. Then you also need on the local rotation axes. That way you could reorient your joints if need be. Okay, so let's turn all that off. Okay, so you'd need to readjust the skeleton placement, and then if you do that, you have to go back through those steps that we learned earlier. And so now we're going to reapply the weights. Okay, so I'm going to select the model, deselect the joints. Now we're going to have to, I'll just grab the model, okay, and then I'm going to say load weights, and it's saying that you must select one or more of the point weights. You must have one or more vertices. So again, this works on vertices. So let's grab the vertices again. Okay, now I've already saved these weights. So if I just click on load weights, I think it's all going to work. Okay. Oh, the reason it's not working is because I haven't bound the skeleton yet. So, made my changes. Let's select the skeleton. Shift select the geometry. Control Shift select the geometry. Can't select it because, okay. There we go. I have to have my selection items on. Let's go to skin, bind skin. Okay, so now it's bound, but it's nasty. So I just happen to have another file with the twist joints added. Again, we went over that last week. It should be seen in the class video. So now I've got twist joints in. So I still have Comet weights up. I'm still looking at that file. But you can see that it's not weighted, so I've got to weight it. In this case, I'm just going to do a quick bind. Let's grab the skeleton, shift select the geometry, skin, bind skin. So now I've got a bind, but it's it needs work. So now let's try selecting the model and loading the weights again. And it says you have to grab vertices. Okay, so vertices. Okay, so now let's load weights. Okay, so now my weights are loaded. Note that you have to make sure, so if you've shut down this interface, you'd have to go back in and make sure that these weights are selected where you saved them from. And so now, if I go back to the object, and so now I can rotate the weights. It's going to remember the weighting that I put in, and it's ignoring the new joints. So with the new joints, I could just go in and manually change the difference. But that was a way of saving the work that I've done previously. So loading and saving weights is something that's done all the time, and that's just one tool. I'll show you maybe another one or two in class. Have a good one.